Hello, welcome to another episode of Inside the Huddle. Today is Sunday, July 20th. This is episode 71 of the Inside the Huddle podcast. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Make sure to please like and subscribe. Appreciate your support. As always, we are just a couple days away from training camp beginning. Over the next couple days, we'll get teams all across the league reporting. Practices will begin by the middle of the week. Back Together weekend is next weekend, so it's here. We're 11 days away at the time of this recording from the Hall of Fame game, so exciting times. Football is back. It's in the air, and I got a couple things to discuss today before training camp takes place this week. DiMari, how's it going, man?
Yeah, I'm doing good. We are right at the finish line. Like I said, 11 days away from the Hall of Fame game. For those who are more college football heavy fan base, we are, I believe, almost 30 days away from that once we get the 23rd. Those first games coming on August 23rd. So, yeah, we are finally at the finish line. That day period is over. Football is fully back. Time to ramp up fantasy football. We'll get into that eventually as well. So, yeah, football is finally back in full swing, and I could not be more excited.
Yeah, definitely. And it's kind of the start. You mentioned college as well. Really now up until February, it's all football. So we're back. We made it through the dead period. We got through the rough months of, May and June that, happens after the draft where things are really pretty dead. We're here late July. Things are really starting to ramp up across the league. And today, I believe actually also marks 7 Sundays away from week 1. So that's another mark there to look forward to. But today we got a couple different things to talk about as we ramp up here closer to training camp. A couple contract extensions. We'll get into some second-year quarterbacks that need to and could take a jump. And we'll also get into some under-the-radar rookies that could make a bigger impact than I think many expect or many project going into the 2025 season. We'll start here, though, with the New York Jets. One day after they extended Garrett Wilson, we spoke about Garrett, of course, last week. They also extended Sauce Gardner. It is a historic contract. I'll put it at that. Highest paid corner in NFL history. 4 years, $120.4 million. That's $30.1 million per year, which is $0.1 million more than Derek Stingley Jr., who was previously the highest paid cornerback on top of the contract. It includes $85.6 million guaranteed. So Sauce Gardner is locked up, similar to Garrett, for the next 6 seasons. And the New York Jets lock up their 2 young stars right before training camp. They also got their contract done, just kind of a side note, with Mason Taylor, their second-round pick. So for the first time in a long time, the New York Jets enter training camp without any drama, right? This time last year, we were just entering the Hassan Reddick drama when he started to hold out. Then shortly after that became the trade request. You were kind of wondering going into this how the New York Jets would handle these contracts. Would both of them get done before training camp? And Darren Mucci and Aaron Glenn have got both done. There's no drama. Contracts are done. You go into training camp. It's all football. It's all business now. So that's good to see. But what was your thoughts on just the Sauce Gardner contract, that specifically?
First, from just like a personal standpoint of Sauce, he came a long way, and I like to see it. I don't know. I think it was Hard Knocks last year when the Jets were on it. Kind of just explaining his story, how he comes to Cincinnati, like 6'2", lanky guy, like 160 pounds. Really wasn't expecting any playing time at Cincinnati, and then just jailed his way into, this great corner in college to, one, come out of Cincinnati. As we know, that's a school that really doesn't produce a lot of big names, and now he gets 3 if you think about the Kelseys and now Sauce Gardner as well. So, yeah, for him to come a long way to get this contract, I like to see that from him with his story. But it was a no-brainer. I'm glad that they got the deal done. I mean, I was kind of looking at some notes earlier today and did not know he was the first rookie to make the first-team All-Pro since Ronnie Lott. So that speaks volume when you consider the name we're talking about. But I mean, since he's been in the league, this guy's been proving. You know what Sauce is going to give you each and every Sunday. Obviously, Defensive Rookie of the Year in 22, 2-time Pro Bowler. So he is more than deserving of this contract, and he's a top 5 corner. He shows it every week. He got paid like that. So for the Jets, I mean, give out, I believe, $250 million in extensions in 2 days, but you locked your guys up. Your future is kind of safe and secure to move forward. And I like actually I really like what the Jets have done this offseason. I know we're both hoping we see some Jets playoff football lead from what they've done this offseason, but if it all starts up front in the front office, I think they've done an A-plus job this offseason, locking their guys up, and just this whole new regime has been off to a hot start.
Yeah, it's a breath of fresh air. The Jets for the longest time have let young talent, slip away, whether it's trading it, letting their contracts run out, letting them hit free agency, whatever it is, or just not having good young talent to extend. They've been that way forever, and it's nice to see in the first 6 months under Darren Muji. And like we said, we got to see playoffs, we got to see wins until you can really grade what Muji and Glenn are going to be for this organization. But the first 6 months have been a positive, and not even just the Sauce Gardner and Garrett Wilson extensions, but also Jamie Sherwood, who they locked up before he could even hit free agency. He was going to be one of the top young linebackers on the market. They got that deal done before he hit the open market, which was smart business and being quick. And this is the first time in Jets history that they have given out a contract to two players, not just two, but one. Garrett Wilson was the first, Sauce Gardner now the second. They've never given out a contract to a player after their third year, which is just crazy. All these years, it just shows you how slow they've been, how they haven't given out second contracts to a lot of these young guys. It really just shows the dysfunction. And I think another thing important to all this is you're now getting Sauce locked up for these prime years, right? He's under contract up until 2030. Could we maybe see a restructure a couple years from now? I think that's the biggest thing with getting these contracts done now is you're getting ahead of it. The longer you wait, the higher the value is going to go up. So you get these deals done now. In a year or two from now, they very well could look like bargains. But you have Sauce now up for 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. It's the prime of his career. And I'm glad you brought up just what he brings to the table every single week. You mentioned the Ronnie Lott stat. He's also the only cornerback in NFL history to make back-to-back first-team All-Pros in his first 2 seasons. And even though he had a down year for his standards, he was still a top 5, top 7 cornerback in the NFL. I mean, he was targeted the second fewest times. He only allowed 25 catches, which was the least in the NFL. His 17.7 snaps per reception was second. Forced incompletions was 6th at 12. His catch rate against ranked 6th. And since entering the league, I mean, you look at just some of these other advanced metrics and some of these other numbers, tied for first in forced incompletions. Both his coverage grade and overall grade is first in the NFL among cornerbacks since that time. So he's clearly been one of the top players at the position since entering the league in 2022, that historic draft class that the New York Jets are now locking up. And, really when you break down the contracts, they're essentially 2 6-year deals in a way, which is kind of results to about $25 million per year when you add on the 2 years that's still left on their rookie deal. And just one other note, highest paid corners now in the NFL, Sauce Stingley, J.C. Horn-Ramsey, and Pat Surtain. And it just shows you how fast the market goes because Surtain felt like just yesterday he was the highest paid corner, and now there's 4 guys in front of him, so that was definitely something interesting to kind of note as well. And feels like just from an NFL perspective, Christian Gonzalez, maybe is he next? Do you have anybody in mind that you think is next, let's say next offseason that could potentially break the bank and get a big deal?
Yeah, probably Gonzalez. That might be the only one that stands out. I can't really think of any other rookies, fairly, not rookies, but any other corners that's fairly young, kind of, years 2, 3, 4 that has really stood out besides Gonzalez. So lucky for him, he can thank Sauce that he's going to be receiving a nice payday because everyone else has gotten paid.
Yeah, definitely. Sauce Gardner locked up long-term, and the New York Jets lock up their 2 young stars, and you get ready for training camp. We'll see a lot of Garrett Wilson and Sauce Gardner going up against each other in training camp for the next 6 years, which is good to see. All right, one other extension that also took place here for across the NFL, I should say. Go to Pittsburgh. We discussed this a little bit last week. TJ Watt and the Pittsburgh Steelers have agreed on a historic contract, 3 years, $123 million. It is the largest are the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. The deal comes with $108 million fully guaranteed at signing, and the $41 million average per year tops the $40.25 million average, which was given to Jamar Chase and Myles Garrett as well, who had $40 million. So those two guys broke the bank. TJ Watt took it to another level. We talked about this a little bit last week, so we'll touch on this a little bit here, but he's led the NFL the past 5 seasons in sacks, 73.5. I mean, the guy's a lead at his position. This time last week, it was a bad look for Pittsburgh that they couldn't get anything done, or you heard maybe possibility of trading him. What are your thoughts on this? Getting the deal done with, who knew, paying your star pass rusher? Pretty good idea.
Yeah, I kind of wish that would, be the case in other areas, throughout the U.S. where paying your star pass rusher is a great idea. But yeah, we talked about this last week. I'm not going to ramble too much on it again. We looked at some of the numbers for TJ Watt, some of the stats, and it would have been just probably the dumbest move in Pittsburgh Steelers history to not sign him back, trade him, whatever the case was, whatever they were kind of floating these ideas around. So this is a guy that got the money that he deserved, and we are now going to see another great TJ Watt year because now you're a little more motivated. And we kind of mentioned this, I believe, a few episodes ago. Whether you are awaiting a contract or you get a contract, there's that extra motivation up under you, light the fire, where you either want to prove why you got paid what you did, or you want to prove you deserve it. So, happy for TJ Watt. This Steelers defense is now considered scary. We talked about how it wouldn't be without him. So yeah, good thing with TJ Watt. Love the contract. They finally got that done. But I guess I will ramble a little bit from just two other perspectives, and just more a little bit of a question. Do you personally think Trey Hendrickson and Micah Parsons should touch the money that TJ Watt did?
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll be close, right? I mean, I'll say this. I don't think they'll top it, but they'll probably get close.
I'm in agreement. When I'm looking at the number breakdown, and when you just reread it, I don't think neither one of them should top that number TJ Watt just got. Close, absolutely. Maybe maybe a million or two less, but they should not reset the market after he just reset the market. I mean, I think all three guys are on the same level, but at a different tier at the same time. That makes sense. So I was just curious on that. I'm kind of looking at that. I'm like, there's two guys that still want extensions. What will theirs look like? Probably Hendrickson sometime soon, and Michael Parsons in 2042 when we finally decide to re-sign him. So, yeah.
2042. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this, and this, I do want to tie in the Cowboys a little bit to this because I know, obviously, definitely have some thoughts on that, but we did, crush the Steelers a little bit last week. You do have to give the Steelers a little bit of credit now a week later for getting this done, not having it hang over their head during training camp, because that would be, it's a massive deal. It's a massive distraction if TJ Watt was holding out and you had these trade rumors and all this stuff during camp, because it's already been that way all off season. Having that during camp's not good. So getting it done a couple days before is the right move. And since he looks bad in this, and then you look at the Dallas perspective, and it's, how much longer is Jerry Jones going to wait on Micah Parsons? And how much longer are the Cincinnati Bengals going to wait on Trey Hendrickson? And the whole Shamar Stewart situation, that's a whole nother debacle too. We're getting new reports out of there. He's not training with Texas A&M football, but he's back at Texas A&M training. And there was a report that came out yesterday that, so the Texas A&M thing, that's not really the issue. It's not like he's going back and training with Texas A&M football like he's going to go back to college. But there was another report yesterday that they're still not even close. I mean, what's going to happen there with Stewart? What's going to happen there with Hendrickson? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, Micah Parsons, feels like we've been talking about this since the guy entered the league.
It feels like it's
been forever. And I know 2042 feels like forever. It feels like we've been talking about Parsons since like 2010. It does.
Yeah.
And it's just, how much longer are you going to wait? Like, my question is, what is Jerry Jones waiting for? What is he going to wait? Trey Hendrickson to break the bank? all these other guys to get paid, you know?
I don't understand it. This is the thing where I'm really not grasping. I'm trying to comprehend is trying to word it to where I just don't really spaz on Jerry Jones. But it's just I can say I'm going. What are you waiting on? Is it in terms of the years? Because in previous contracts, and we have seen it with everyone that we have signed an extension for within the last few years, from Zeke to DeMarcus Lawrence to Dak to CD to Trayvon Diggs. It's always the two sides can't see like meet eye to eye, and I don't know if it's sometimes it's the thing in terms of the years on the contract. That 3 to 4, 4 to 5, that type of thing, or it's the dollar amount. I know with Dak Prescott, and this was a report out of camp. Actually, I don't know how true it was necessarily. I probably should have fact checked it, but I'm going to throw out an idea that was floating around, and I will fact check it after we wrap up here. Apparently, where it could possibly be is, and the problem with Dak was Dak wanted a shorter amount of years, so the dollar, is more compact. It won't stretch out as long. So I think that's the deal with Michael Parsons, where he wants less years. He wants less years, so 3 years from now he can try to, renegotiate another contract, and that's the holdup. But in this case, for Michael Parsons, and I mean for Jerry Jones, who cares? Blank check.
Yeah.
You want 3 years, we'll give you 3. You want 4, we'll give you 4. You want us to rename the street outside the stadium for you? We will do that. Who cares? It's Michael Parsons. This might be biased, generational talent. I don't think you're going to find another Michael Parsons unless Abdul Carter steps in. I've used him because, Penn State guy, very, very, very similar. So unless Abdul Carter steps in and plays similar, that's great for him. But I think we mentioned this last week with TJ Watt. You're not about to go grab a random guy from Iowa, Mississippi State, Nebraska, whatever the case is, and find you another TJ Watt, Michael Parsons, Trey Henderson, whatever the case is. So I am just as confused as you. I'm just as confused as the whole entire fan base of what is the exact holdup, because now Watt gets this extension. Let's say Henderson gets his 2 weeks from now. Now Parsons is sitting there, and he's going to break the bank. I guess last thing I do want to add to that, from Parsons' standpoint of it, what I do like to see is he doesn't plan on holding out. He plans on participating and showing like, hey, my value is only going to go up, so you might as well pay me ahead of time. So I'm expecting a Defensive Player of the Year type year. I think I've used that as my rewards for him to win it. So in 2042, when they do sign him, we'll be making $75 million because they waited too long. So Jerry Jones, man, you find a way to make me sick.
It's really interesting because and Micah Parsons' podcast episodes get really interesting when he talks about this, because hasn't been afraid to take some direct shots at ownership. I mean, the other day he said, what was it? Something about ownership always likes to wait, or something along those lines. Like, he has not been afraid to come out publicly and voice his, I guess, displeasure. Maybe that's the word. I don't know exactly the right phrase, but voices,
displeasure, definitely.
Towards ownership in these negotiations. I mean, Parsons essentially, like we said, we've been talking about this for a year. Parsons essentially has been wanting this for a year, right? Going back to last offseason, it was the same thing about trying to work out an extension, and the Cowboys and Jerry Jones have sat on his hands and hasn't done anything. And just imagine if they got something done last year, how much of a bargain that would look after the Myles Garrett contract and the TJ Watt contract. I mean, it would look like a complete bargain at this point. And now you're going to have to match him up similar to Myles Garrett, a little bit lower probably than TJ Watt, but still upwards near that highest paid quarterback level, where I think Garrett was about 40 million, somewhere around that. So I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, the guy's got 52.5 sacks in his career, and this is obvious, just football talk in general, but good quarterback can really elevate your team. But this probably the second biggest thing to having an elite quarterback that can take you from a 7-8 win team to an 11-12 win team is having an elite pass rusher. If you have an elite pass rusher, your ceiling can raise probably about 3-4 wins every single year. And Parsons is in that category of elite. You think of the top edge rushers in football, it's TJ Watt it's Micah Parsons, it's Myles Garrett, it's all those guys. Even Max Crosby can throw his name in there, maybe on a little bit of the back end. Bosa, if he could stay healthy, and the Niners can get back to doing what they could do. He's also in that list as well, of course. Yeah, I don't know what they're waiting for. I mean, same thing, same conversation we have with the Steelers and TJ Watt. You take away Parsons, defense looks significantly less scary than it does now, which is, and I don't
just.
Oh, go ahead.
So I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to add on that I just feel like there has to be some type of strategy to everything going on. If I'm Dallas, I want to get Parsons done as soon as possible. And now my focus in going into next year, depending on what type of year he has, it's all right, let's work on George Pickens now, who is going to be a free agent after this year. So if Pickens has a big year, you don't have to worry about getting two guys done at once because there's no one else under, extension worthy on the roster. I guess you can say that. Everyone has got their deals done besides Parsons. You get Parsons done next year. It's George Pickens. That's all the focus. And now you go draft focus. You're not trying to, put your apples in so many different baskets. But hey, I'm a regular guy in my living room, so I don't know what's best for the organization. But I just feel like that's the smart thing to do if Jerry Jones wants to do the smart thing, but clearly not because that dollar amount continues to raise. It did it with Dak. It did it with CD. It's going to do it with Micah.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There also kind of in this recent podcast episode or whatever you want to call it. He was also talking about similar to what the longer you wait, you want us to take less, which is the opposite of what really should be happening. And you make a good point about the pick and stuff. I mean, he's going to be number 2, obviously, to CeeDee Lamb, be motivated to have a big year, try and get a contract. If you find yourself in that situation where you're paying both guys or figuring out both contracts, like that just, it's a mess. To wait that long, just get Parsons done and then focus on Pickens next year or whoever else emerges. So will this get done before the season?
I want to say yes. If we remember last season, Dak literally signed his deal like 2 hours before kickoff. So there's some faith, there's some hope. But if it doesn't get done before the season, definitely sometime before that bye week, it will get done.
Yeah, I agree. I think it will get done at some point. But like, what's the difference? Like what's going through Jerry Jones's brain? The difference between signing him on July 20th and signing him on September 3rd, like 4 days before the regular season. What's the difference?
There is no difference. There is no difference. Basically, just wasting 2 months.
It's or now. So the 55 and a half or 52 and a half sacks in 63 games in 4 years isn't enough. So we're going to wait until the bye week. And if he's playing well, then we're going to like, what? And that another thing too is going to go up. If you wait until the bye week, what is week 10 bye? I think it is.
I think so.
If you wait until that bye week and he's on a defensive player of the year caliber level, then do you look at Parsons' side of things and say, hold on, I want way more than what I originally was asking for if he's playing at that level, So it gets interesting, but we'll see what happens. See how it all plays out. TJ Watt done. I'll say this. Parsons, I think, gets done before Hendrickson and whatever the heck Shamar Stewart's going to do this year.
Yeah.
I mean, Shamar Stewart might be a third co-host on this show. Who knows? If he's not going to play.
At this rate, we might sign him before Cincinnati does. So, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on over there. I'll say this just quickly, and then we'll move on to obviously some of the rookie stuff and second-year quarterbacks. The Shamar Stewart situation, the Trey Hendrickson situation, the bad side of the Bengals organization that has hurt them for so many years is coming out again. And I have come to the conclusion, and I've started to see this just on, social media and stuff and, Bengals fans, talk, insiders, all these people around the league. Joe Burrow really covered up the bad, evil side of that organization that has plagued them for years. And all it took was Burrow getting hurt, Jake Browning coming in, and then the defense falling off a cliff, and back-to-back years, and now we're sitting here, and the Bengals are looking like the Bengals of old. For that little bit there, when they got to the Super Bowl, knocked off, of course, Mahomes at Arrowhead, it looked like they were changing. The organization was finally getting in line, but that was really just Joe Burrow covering up all the bad things. And now, little by little, the destruction of the defense, the issues with Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart, it's all coming back where Burrow can only cover up so much. The bad side of that organization, like they will forever be bad. They just stumbled upon an elite quarterback.
What Joe Burrow for this organization reminds me of, I know it's a meme as well, but definitely in the movie. But, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2, that train scene when he's fighting Doc Ock, and it's about to go off the rack of the train track, and, Tobey is holding, webbing, and he's holding on before it goes right over. Joe Burrow is Tobey in that case, and that train that's about to fall over is the Cincinnati organization. Yeah. Joe Burrow just, like you said, I'm not going to go back over it too much. He covered up so much, and they need to be so thankful for what he does for the organization, to the point before he even retires, before whatever his career leads to, it better be Ring of Honor and a Joe Burrow statue outside of that stadium, because that is how much he has done so far in so little.
Yeah. You're spot on. It's ridiculous what has happened these last really year, going back to the defensive issues and then, missing the playoffs and now the Hendrickson issues. And I mean, that defense was so bad last year. A lot of it came in the secondary, but not having Hendrickson or Shamar Stewart out there, I mean, come on now. Essentially, too, Shamar Stewart was the Trey Hendrickson replacement if they got into this situation. And now Hendrickson's not even there, which I guess is a little surprising, but we knew that he wanted a new contract, and it was, wondering when that would happen. But the Shamar Stewart thing is a different animal. And you took him in the first round, too. This isn't like it's you don't usually see this with second-round picks, but it isn't like this is a second-round pick situation that's happened this year where we've seen a lot of second-round picks hold out. Now contracts are starting to happen, but, I mean, come on now. It's ridiculous. I mean, we'll see. And there's two sides to it. Is maybe Shamar Stewart's side, is that an issue more so than the Bengals? But what makes that hard to believe is the Bengals are having their own issues with Trey Hendrickson. So, yeah, you're right, though. It's a good reference. Burrow can only do so much. That offense can only do so much. 40 points is only going to win you so many games, which is kind of sad to say. You would score 40 points, you should win every single game.
In the NFL, if you're averaging 40, you should be 17-0.
Yeah. And at least making the playoffs. The fact that they didn't even make the playoffs doing that is, I mean, you let Russell Wilson and the Pittsburgh Steelers go in and put up 40 on you.
I would say right before we move on, I just want to add that the offense that we have talked about being from, older than Walt Disney and Disney World went inside that building and dropped 44 points, which was the most they have scored in a set amount of years. That's pretty bad. This is a lot about your organization.
Yeah, 100%. It's the AFC North. The AFC North is just, you've got Ravens, who are one of the gold standards of year in and year out, competitive, all that stuff. Harbaugh's been there forever. They went from Flacco in the Super Bowl. You transition right into the Lamar era, all that stuff. And I know they haven't gone done with Lamar, but year in and year out, they're right in the conversation. I think they will get over the hump at some point. Maybe that's this year. Then you have Pittsburgh, who is, the historic franchise just in general. Recently, obviously hasn't had the success that they are used to, but year in and year out, they're competitive. They're never going to tank. They're never going to be a 4 or 5 win team. Tomlin's been there forever. Prior to that, it was Bill Cowher. I mean, they're notoriously known for having a very few amount of coaches, all that stuff. And then you have the Browns and the Bengals, who just can't get out of their own way. I mean, the Browns have been a train wreck for years. I think the Browns have actually been more of a train wreck than the Bengals. And then the Bengals are also a train wreck that got directed a little bit in the right direction by Joe Burrow, but now it's like the organization's coming back to life and all the bad is coming out. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Cincy. I still don't think they did enough with their defense, but find out. Only time will tell. Anyway, that's the Bengals stuff and just the contract stuff in general. Moving on now. Second-year quarterbacks who could take a leap, need to take a leap, entering year number 2 of their careers. Got a couple names here that we'll discuss. Then shortly after that, we'll get into some under-the-radar rookies to keep an eye on as training camp begins. And more importantly, just to keep an eye on once the season rolls around. So you said you had 2 quarterbacks off there. I've also got a couple. We can kind of just rattle them off if you want to begin, and we could just kind of dive into this.
I think the first one, the most obvious one we probably both have, it has to be the first overall pick. I need Caleb Williams to have, I think the world needs Caleb Williams to have a big year. Kind of no excuses this year. I know a lot of last year was on the coaching staff kind of not being the best, but, you had weapons. You had a lot of weapons, Caleb Williams. So this year, I think it needs that next jump. You get Ben Johnson over there. You draft Luther Burden. You have the weapons. Now it's time to show why you were a first-round pick. And it's kind of hard to put it all on Caleb Williams when you look back at just those Bears offenses over the years. Where we're talking about Trubisky, Fields had his struggles. So it's not a quarterback-friendly place, if we're being so honest. But, when you're the first overall pick, it was 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns on correct, 6 INTs, which isn't too bad, but just not what was expected from him when he came in, especially the type of game he hyped up, telling the punter you're not going to have to punt the ball too much and all these other things. You got games where the offense can't even score touchdowns. So I'm expecting a big year from Caleb Williams, because if not, could we talk about Chicago looking at a potential quarterback in a few years?
Yeah, Chicago is similar to the Jets and a couple other teams, the Browns as well. They are a burial ground for quarterbacks. Chicago's never had a 4,000-yard passer, which is still crazy to this day that they haven't had a 4,000-yard passer, but they haven't. So it is what it is. Chicago, yeah. If Caleb Williams goes out there this year and does exactly what he did last year and the Bears are like an 8-win team, there's already going to start to be some fire under him. And just because of the history and all that stuff, there's going to already be some impatience in the fan base. And I totally agree with Caleb Williams on this one as well. They've done everything for him. They have catered everything to him this offseason, which is the right thing to do. When you draft a guy first overall, he had a little bit of a bumpy rookie year. You've got to do everything in your power to make sure that you build it up around him. You got his coach. He wanted Ben Johnson. They got Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson was the top hot coordinator on the market. They completely retooled and rebuilt that offensive line, which was an issue last year. They've rebuilt it. They've retooled it. So you got the offensive line. You have the coach. You went out. You still have DJ Moore. You obviously have Rome Odunze in year number 2. You also went out and drafted Luther Burden. So they've got weapons. Cole Kmet, Colston Loveland you drafted. They have done everything. They drafted tight end in the first round. They rebuilt the offensive line, got him his head coach. All of that. It's very early on put up or shut up time for Caleb Williams. Last year you had few of the built-in excuses. Eberflus was a terrible coach. The offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron was fired middle of the year, which that was a disaster. So he did go through a lot. This year, there's really no excuses. What would be a successful year for Caleb? Is it 26, 27 touchdowns, can get up to like 3,000? Can he get up to the 3,700, 800 yard mark? That type of season, and the Bears maybe forget so much team success, but just him on an individual level.
Yeah, I would say, and let me just add too before I even get into that. He finished 35-41 yards, which for as bad as the year went, or as lackluster as the year went, still very close to 4,000. A few games go a little differently. We're talking about 4,000 for Caleb Williams. So I think he can reach, that. I just don't think it's going to be this year. But if I'm, personal successful year for him, I'm thinking, maybe 37, 38 when it comes to yards, 25, 26 touchdowns, and try to keep the INTs in the single digits, which he did a great job of doing last year. So if you can keep the INTs, I don't think he's going to throw as low as 6, but even if he gets borderline at 9, 26 and 9, I think that's a very good year for Caleb Williams.
Yeah, I agree. And the team success standpoint, obviously, if they get to the playoffs, then, really a successful year. But, yeah, I mean, last year wasn't awful considering everything he went through. But it's got to be better from a first overall pick perspective. And I'll continue to say this quick with Caleb Williams because they rebuilt the offensive line. That's can't be the excuse anymore. He's got to get the ball out. We talked about this going into last year. The college, the rolling out, all that stuff extending to play, it can work in the NFL, but it gets to a point where the NFL game's going to be too fast. You're not going to be able to get away and have that much time that you did at USC that you're going to have in the NFL, especially in that division where you have 3 teams that are more than capable of making the playoffs. So Caleb Williams, number 1. I'll throw another one out here as well. And there's a couple, but Drake Maye, to me, is another one. Similar boat with Caleb Williams in terms of last year didn't really, a little bit different because he didn't start right away, right? It was Jacoby Brissett early on. But already a coaching change. Vrabel comes in. From Drake Maye's perspective, he's got a ton of talent. He's got a lot more talent around him now than he did last year, right? They brought in the coach for him. They brought in Josh McDaniels as the offensive coordinator, so he returns to his old stomping ground, see if he can reignite some Brady magic inside of Drake Maye. You added Stephon Diggs. You went out and drafted Kyle Williams, who I really like. They've got some pieces, and also from Drake Maye's perspective, they also went out. Offensive line, I still think is a little bit of an issue, but they did add Will Campbell, right? You drafted him. They also signed Morgan Moses in free agency, who's been a steady veteran tackle in his career. So they reinforced the offensive line a bit. From Drake Maye's perspective, you got a number 1 receiver in Stephon Diggs as long as he stays off boats and does his job and shows up and, makes plays. Drake Maye's another guy that I think needs to, has to, and will take a jump. I'm very high on Drake Maye, and I'm very high on the New England Patriots, unfortunately. I hate saying that, but I think New England could shock some people this year.
Yeah, I had Drake Maye as my second one. Actually, Caleb Williams and Drake Maye are the only 1 and 2 I had. But I just want to clear something up for, the viewers that are going to tune in and watch it. Yes, it's obvious Drake Maye and Caleb Williams will be the 2 answers here. Not saying Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix, for instance, aren't guys that need to take a second-year jump because you can always continue to take, improvement and more leaps. But those 2 being the most obvious, Maye and Williams, because maybe it's just me, but you watch Daniels, you watch Nix, and again, another step we're expecting this year. But you watch those 2 guys and you're just like, these are the franchise quarterbacks. There's no question marks about it. These are the franchise guys. These are the franchise guys. These 2 guys can turn the organization around, lead this team to the playoffs like they both did. The other 2 did not. And there's question marks around the 2 of them still, last season where they had some instances where Caleb Williams more than Drake Maye, if you ask me, but you have some games where you're just like, you play more like this is a franchise guy. And then you had some games, more Caleb Williams side of it, where you're kind of just like, are they going to draft a quarterback in the next few years? So this isn't just about, 2 guys made the playoffs and 2 guys didn't. This is just about the other 2 have took a step further than the other 2, and they have made it clear and obvious, like, that is their team for quite some time. I think these other 2, Maye and Williams, still have a lot to prove. But just to get, back into Maye, I'm 100% on board with you. That's why I had him as my number 2. His time in college was kind of weird. Like, he was, and to tie it in where coming out of college, some was super high on him, some people weren't. And you kind of didn't know what to expect from when he got into the league. And obviously, he didn't start the year out as a starter with New England. But when he stepped in, you had some very, very good games from him, especially using his legs where back to my point, where you're like, this can be the guy with some talent around him. This can be the guy. Like, there's a very high ceiling for him. So I think with the talent that you just mentioned, with the new regime of head coaching and some other things, I think Drake May can take that next step, and New England needs that. I mean, after what they've dealt with after Brady, they need an answer. They need a solution. Personally, I don't care if they never find that solution. I think you're on board with that as well.
I was just about to say, I don't think they need anything. They could keep Jacoby Brissett. I would have extended him, honestly.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you are okay if they never find a solution. They can draft a quarterback every year for the next 18 years, and you'll be fine. But just from the football fan of it standpoint, no bias. I mean, I want to see Drake May be successful. When the few times I unfortunately had to watch New England on TV, he had some good games. You've seen some potential out of him, and I think he's due for a big year. But now I'm kind of curious from your point of view, who has a better year, Drake May or Caleb Williams?
It's a good question. I've always been I was higher on Drake May than I was Caleb Williams coming out of college. We probably remember those discussions, last draft season. The Bears on paper should be better than the Patriots, and Caleb Williams, he's got more weapons around him. Like, he's got a proven, and I guess the same goes for Drake May a little bit, but not quite. I mean, I look at DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, Luther Burden, and then Colston Loveland, Cole Kmet as a lot better than, or not maybe a good marginally better than Stephon Diggs, Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, a Kyle Williams, whoever that third is, and then Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper. Weapons wise, Caleb's got more around him. New England's still lacking a bit at receiver, but I think they're hoping on, can Demario Douglas be a decent 2 or 3? Can Kyle Williams emerge? And then you've got a steady veteran, Stephon Diggs, who, if he could stay healthy, is way better than what they were working with last year. And Ramondre Stevenson's not a bad back either. I would also say that the Bears' offensive line has a lot more potential than the Patriots. The Patriots still have some holes. I know they shored up some of the tackle spots, but there's still some questions there. And look, Will Campbell's still a rookie. There's going to be growing pains. I want to say Drake May because I do actually think in the long run, Drake May is going to have the better career. And he's going to be the better quarterback. But this year alone, it's probably Caleb Williams. I mean, he was better last year, and I know he played more games. Statistically, though, he did, come out better, and that's a little skewed because, Drake May started the year on the bench. If Drake May played the whole year, he actually might have had more touchdowns. I mean, he finished with 15 and 13 games. So there's a real chance if he started the whole year, he could have been at 22, 23. I don't know. Maybe Caleb, probably.
It's tough. I mean, I see exactly where you're coming from, where you talk about the weapons and you're like, it has to be Caleb.
Yeah.
But I know division play has nothing to do with individual statistics, but I'm going to tie this all in. If we're talking about overall team success, I feel like Drake May might have the upper hand in that, considering that division. That division's a lot weaker than what it is in the North. So, I mean, if we're talking about, honestly, if we're looking at Caleb Williams and we're looking at Drake May, and both guys stats down to the same exact 3,500, 22 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, same record, we're going to say that Drake May had the better season. Caleb Williams had a lackluster year. So I think just for where they are playing at situational base, it's going to be, it should be Drake. It could be Drake May. It needs to be Caleb Williams with everything that you said, weapons-wise, and just the expectations. But the league is full of surprises. And like I said, both guys showed a lot last year, a lot of good potential, and there were some question marks, but that's a tough one. But I think it should be Caleb Williams.
Yeah. You make a very good point, and it's interesting because New England team success, there's a real good chance they have more than Chicago because, like you mentioned, the division. But then you look at the flip side, Caleb Williams could have the better year, but New England could finish. And there's a real chance New England finishes second in the AFC East. There's
Yeah,
a real chance that
kind of
Chicago
crazy.
still finishes fourth in the AFC North or NFC North. Maybe that's a stretch. But Green Bay, Detroit's going to be at the top. And if JJ McCarthy is just average with those weapons, they're going to win games.
Yeah.
It's an interesting debate. Weapons, 100% Bears. I guess, like, overall, division chance of playoffs? Maybe New England because of the weaker division and Drake Maye. And then who's actually going to have the better year? Well, if Caleb Williams with those weapons, he should. It's interesting.
It's tough. It's
Yeah,
tough.
but it's something that will be very fun to follow. Who has the better big year and who has the better year and who takes that big year to jump. If New England had one other like really good steady veteran receiver, then I would 100% say probably Drake Maye, or if they had a really good tight end, but they don't have that. I mean, Demario Douglas isn't a bad number two. Just pulling up his numbers here from last year. 66 receptions, 621 yards. It's okay. He's in year 4. And again, they should be more well coached, different scheme. And who knows, if Drake Maye is really good, he can elevate too, right? He can elevate a Demario Douglas, and you have to throw that into the equation as well. So I would probably go ahead and say Caleb Williams.
I do want to throw one more thing in that I was at work. This actually, like, guy I work with is a Pats fan, and I brought up the idea of, hey, we're kind of just talking about the roster a little bit, what we're expecting out of the Patriots. There's no reason Amari Cooper is still out there on the market. If that team could make a push for Amari Cooper for a little to nothing, you pair him with Stephon Diggs, I think Drake Maye has a better year. But then again, this is all, ifs and fantasy, but a guy of that caliber still sitting on the market, why not take a shot? Especially with Diggs, you don't know how healthy he's going to be when he comes back. The other guys are unproven. Douglas, a little proven, but is that your wide receiver too that you want to take up the Arrowhead to play Patrick Mahomes? So, I mean, I kind of threw that idea to him yesterday, and he liked it. I liked it. I think you pair those two, their possibility. Also, more help for Drake Maye. We will be looking back at this conversation and probably saying, hey, we should have went the other way. But I'm right with you where it's Caleb Williams. But, yeah, just want to throw that out there. That Amari Cooper to New England potential, I kind of like that idea to help Drake Maye out.
Yeah, it feels like whoever we picked, we're placing like a curse on them for the 2025 season, and they're just going to stink. So in the end, Drake Maye will be the better one. But yeah, you make a good point. It's Amari Cooper, and like I mentioned, just a better veteran. Cooper, even Keenan Allen, somebody else who can just go up and put up 700, 650, 700 yards, just steady veteran that's got a track record. Heck, even a Gabe Davis. I know last year was bad and he blew up, but somebody like that, I mean, it's just more reliable, more trustworthy than Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, who was more of a product of Josh Allen than anything last year. And you mentioned, going to Arrowhead, heck, even going to Buffalo or playing Buffalo twice a year. Do they have enough firepower for that? Amari Cooper certainly helps. Keenan Allen certainly helps. Stephon Diggs, Cooper, Allen, whatever. Amari Cooper, for the sake of the argument. And then Demario Douglas as your 3, that's a lot better. And then your 4 can be maybe Kyle Williams can emerge. So, yeah, I like that idea of them picking. And who knows, maybe they will, right? I mean, these guys have got to get signed at some point. I doubt Keenan Allen and Amari Cooper go the entire year unsigned.
Yeah.
Once training camp begins and these teams really get, get a good grasp and get a better understanding of really where they are at roster-wise, you start to see these moves. New England 2 weeks in, there's nobody behind Diggs that's emerging. Maybe they go out and make that move. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. And I don't know. I guess New England could finish second. It hurts me to say it, but they could. I mean, we don't know what Miami's going to be, and the Jets are really hinges on Fields. We've talked about that a lot. I don't know. It's tough to say. The Jets and Patriots are similar though in the fact that their receiver rooms are very questionable. The Jets have Garrett Wilson. It's a bunch of question marks. Sure, you have Josh Reynolds. Is he enough though? I mean, Alan Lazard. And then you get into your 3 or your 4-5 guys. It's like Arian Smith, the rookie, Tyler Johnson, who's shown some flashes, but not enough in his career. Is Malachi Corley going to do anything? New England, it's the same thing. So the AFC East it's again going to be Buffalo running away with it. And it's just going to be out of that Miami, New England Jets combo, what team can muster up a competitive season? It's really what it's going to come down to.
Buffalo's going to have just an easy walk through the division while the other 3 beat up on each other. And Buffalo's just like, hey, thanks again, guys.
Yep. It's going to be, a 13-win Buffalo team, and the second place team will be like 9 wins.
Yeah.
They'll have the division locked up by the first week of December.
Yeah.
So, anyway, let's finish things up here. Under the radar rookies who can make an impact, not talked about much here, to keep an eye on as we enter training camp and get closer to the 2025 campaign. You want to start us off?
Yeah, I'm going to go with a guy that I actually had third. I think third in terms of receivers I want to see Dallas draft. Obviously, this guy wasn't going to be a first rounder, but he went second to the Chargers, and that's Trey Harris, who I love. Trey Harris at Ole Miss. Him and Jackson Dart, the two of them did great things in college. I think he's going to have a very big year. I don't know if we're considering under the radar, considering he's a second round pick, but he hasn't really been talked about. Just signed his contract, but obviously over there they have McConkey and Quentin Johnson. But now with the retirement of Mike Williams, which is so sudden, he steps into a role where is he going to be wide receiver 2? Is he going to be wide receiver 3? And obviously, for those who watch college, Jackson Dart in a way reminds you of Justin Herbert and vice versa. That big arm, throw the ball down there, let your receiver run under it and get it. Trey Harris is that guy. So I'm liking Trey Harris to have a very big year, especially with Mike Williams now clearing up some space. So we'll see where that wide receiver room leads them, but I'm very excited to see what he does.
I like that one a lot. And you mentioned the Mike Williams thing. That's a big deal because now you look at Trey Harris, like you said, he might jump Quentin Johnson. There's a chance you're looking at him as number 2 ahead of Johnston, and then behind, McConkey. We'll see how that all plays out. Maybe starts out as a 3. But I'll just side note here, not to bring it back to the Jets, but it's just so crazy that this time last year, I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. This time last year, the Jets, us Jet fans, we were like Mike Williams and Tyron Smith were 2 big moves, 2 big pieces getting ready to go to training camp. It was like those guys were going to be big factors. You fast forward a year later and they're both out of the league. It just shows you how much of a mess that season was. And I wish I could see it coming, but I didn't. Anyway, Trey Harris, I like that one. First, second round pick to get the deal done, or second, I think, was Alfred Collins. San Fran got it done. Yeah. He held out a little bit, but then ended up getting the deal done. The Chargers, you hope McConkey can have another big year. See what you get out of Quentin Johnston, Trey Harris. They've got a lot of young pieces there. See if Herbert can elevate them. That's definitely a name to watch, and the Mike Williams news is certainly adds some fuel to that one as well. Since we just literally talked about them, and I didn't want to mention his name that much, but I kind of did. Kyle Williams in New England, we just got done, but we just talked about the receiver room, not to completely rehash it. There's some questions there. I loved Kyle Williams coming out of Washington State. I wanted the Jets to hopefully get him potentially in the third round. New England ended up picking him a couple picks before the Jets. I don't know if the Jets would have taken him. They ended up taking A.Z. Thomas, the corner. So receiver might not even been on their radar at that point. But Kyle Williams is a guy that I really, really like. Thought he was really kind of started skyrocket up draft boards. I think you could have made the case that he was a round 2 talent that they got later on day 3. And there's a real chance here if he progresses well, he might be the number 3, maybe even the number 2 for New England if no other moves happen and he really emerges. So similar to Trey Harris here, potentially emerging without Mike Williams there, without any veteran presence in front of him. Same case for Kyle Williams. Mac Hollins doesn't scare you. That doesn't, his roster spot is like the third receiver, is no lock. Demario Douglas, a little bit more of a lock than Hollins is the number 2, but can Kyle Williams go out there and if he emerges, put together a better season than what Demario Douglas did last year where he can get over 600 yards? Yeah, it's not hard to do. So Kyle Williams is another name. Receiver, day 2 guy as well. Somebody to watch for New England if nothing else happens because they need some help behind Diggs, of course.
Yeah, I like that one. Even if someone does step in, I mean, it usually two things kind of happen if a guy, we're going to use Amari Cooper again, steps in. Either the production goes up or the production goes down. It's kind of one of the two. I think with Diggs and Cooper there, potentially Keenan Allen, the two names that we mentioned, if they come in, that's more attention on the other two. Kyle Williams steps into that 3 role eventually, and it opens up a lot for him. So I do like that one, and you have talked a lot about him when we're doing a lot of draft stuff. I know you're very high on him. So, yeah, I'm in agreement with that one. I'm going to reach for the stars here with my next one. I'm going to go Jordan James, the running back out from Oregon. I believe San Fran is where he landed with. Just the way they run the ball over there in San Francisco, and if you watch Jordan James in college, he's an elusive back, and he fits that scheme. I'm not going to say McCaffrey-like, but, offers kind of similar versatility to Christian McCaffrey. And, again, I honestly think the two of us can probably go rush for San Fran and get at least 800 yards because that is just how that they are a well-oiled machine in terms of the ground game. So, kind of depending on how some things match up. Again, 5th-round pick might not even make the roster. But from what we've seen from San Fran over the last few years with the rotation of backs and injuries and all these type of things, I think if Jordan James gets a legit shot, let's just say RB3, and, get some touches here and there, we see an injury in front of him, I think he can have a pretty solid year and be another just emerging back from San Fran because that's usually how it goes.
Yeah, and that's a good one. And you mentioned the whole CMC thing too throws an interesting spin on that as well. If CMC can't stay healthy, he could potentially play an even bigger role. But yeah, I mean, it's the way they run the ball there, whoever they kind of throw out there. The San Francisco is the prime. When CMC is out, you immediately pick up on fantasy the backup running back. That they are one of those teams that is just no matter who it is, it could be one of us out there. They could just pick us up off the side of the street and say, you're running. People are going to pick us up on fantasy. They've always been that way. And last year, that was the case with, Jordan Mason, who once we heard CMC was out, a ton of people picked him up and slotted him right in. Feels like that could be the case this year. I doubt CMC plays all 17. Even if he doesn't or does, the way they use those guys and even Jordan James potentially more of a role, maybe even than Isaac Guerrero this year. Could he jump him and be the number 2? Yeah. The way San Fran runs the ball over there, definitely like that one. And something to look into from a fantasy perspective if CMC is going to miss time. I'll go running back as well here. I'm going to go Cam Scatterbo. Giants, ASU. I'm going to go NFC East here. It's interesting because you look at where he is on the roster right now, and you can really put him in a position where he's like the third running back behind Tyrone Tracy, who actually had a productive year. I'll say this. Tyrone Tracy was in one of the worst spots last year for the New York Giants. No matter what he did, it was going to be overshadowed by the Saquon Barkley Eagles situation. Tyrone Tracy, coming out of Purdue, came in last year as a 5th-round pick and put together a very productive year. And not enough people have talked about it. Part of it's because the Giants sucked and they were a 3-win team and nobody really talked about the Giants anyway. But a lot of it was, oh, Giants let go of Saquon Barkley and look at what he's doing. Tyrone Tracy last year had 839 yards, 192 carries. He was averaging around 4.5 yards per carry. He had a productive year for a 5th-round pick who started the year as the slated number 2 behind Singletary and then eventually essentially won the job over during the season. So he slots in as the number 1, but Cam Scatterbo is a name to watch from a potentially jumping Devin Singletary and being that number 2. And I don't even know. Even if he's not the number 2, there's just something about Cam Scatterbo and what he was able to do at ASU. Obviously, last year, the biggest year of them all, 1,700 yards, the 21 touchdowns. He had the huge game against Texas, even against Iowa State as well in the Big 12 championship, where he had well over 100 yards. He had the 2 touchdowns in each of those games. Then he had a receiving touchdown as well against Iowa State. I mean, he was a monster. They got him in the 4th round. He's got a little bit of that attitude to him, that running style to him. Giants are going to use him. Him and Tyrone Tracy, I think, could be an under-the-radar, dangerous 1-2 punch for that Giants offense. So I'll throw him out there as 4th round running back. Keep an eye on.
I'm going to say this. By week 4 or 5, Cam Scatterbo will be RB2. I think I'm on board with that. As the season kind of went on, the later portion of the season, you've seen a lot more Tyrone Tracy. Like the snap share completely went in favor of Tyrone Tracy, where Singletary barely played. There was games less than 8 carries for Singletary, not much involvement in the offense. So, you aren't really just pulling this out of nowhere where people are thinking, well, Scatterbo's just going to jump him. Why? Singletary played a big part. He didn't play any part for a lot of that season. It was Tyrone Tracy who really put, the workload on his back. So I am right on board with you, and just not even from a statistical football side of it. You just want to see Cam Scatterbo just be successful. That was just the guy that kind of his story last year in college was fun to watch. You see how he ran the football. And I'm right on board. I think week 4 or 5, he's going to take that RB2 roll over. And, I mean, the 2 of them, 2 different type of runners. Tyrone Tracy is more of your Bucky Irvin, I'm going to use, type of guy where he's so versatile in aspects as a rusher and a pass catcher, where Scatterbo is your bruiser, where you don't want to come up and have to tackle that guy. So that's going to be fun to watch them two. I really like that pull from you.
Yeah, they balance each other well. You nailed it right there towards the end. Tracy, do it all. Scatterbo, that downhill, bruiser type of physical, runs with an attitude, can really complement each other well. So I agree. With your sentiment there. Any other ones you have? You had 3, right?
I'm going to go RJ Harvey. Running back from UCF, landed with Denver 2nd round. RJ Harvey, I don't know if for those watching you, RJ Harvey was actually a top 8 back in college football last year. You can argue it. Just the production from him last year at UCF, it's just they were terrible. So he didn't really get the recognition he deserved. He was a very good back last year. You can argue he had better years in Junkins and some other guys that we probably thought should have went 1st round. But RJ Harvey is actually listed as RB1 on the depth chart. And yes, that is in front of J.K. Dobbins, who I know they signed this offseason, who had a pretty good year with the Chargers last year. I think RJ Harvey has a pretty big season. Because, one thing I think we are going to see is a lot more off the arm of Bo Nix and more on the legs of the running backs, considering they didn't have that last year. That running back room was pitiful. It was terrible to watch the Broncos run the ball. So this year you get Dobbins, you draft Harvey. That way you kind of lean more on the run game, more of a balanced attack, instead of just strictly relying on Bo Nix. I think Harvey has a super big year this year. The only thing is that division that we talked about. We know how that division can get, but I'm thinking for him maybe 900 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think he'll have a pretty decent season.
Yeah, that's a good one, and I feel like he hasn't gotten talked about much coming out of college, and even now is listed number 1 on the depth chart, and I feel like kind of gotten overshadowed because everyone just assumes it's going to be Dobbins and he's going to win the job. But you make a good point. They've kind of quietly here completely revamped that running back room. It hasn't been with the flashy moves, right? It was going after and getting Dobbins, who had a productive year last year in the Chargers, most importantly, a healthy season with the Chargers, had 905 yards, which, a solid year. And then you go out and get RJ Harvey. You have that young, intriguing option in Harvey, and then you have the veteran in Dobbins who is healthy. You know what you're going to get out of him, can be consistent production-wise. It's just the biggest thing is staying on the field. They've revamped it from where they were last year. I mean, Javonte Williams, who we talked about this a couple times, 513 yards last year. That led the way. And it was Jaleel McLaughlin, Aldrick Estime, Tyler Beatty, also played a couple games. I mean, they were awful running the football last year. And you mentioned taking some of it off the arm of Bo Nix. You're going to need to do that. You can have a high-flying, passing first offense, but you also need to be able to run the ball a bit. And Bo Nix finished 3rd on the team in rush yards. Like, that is crazy considering. And it wasn't that far behind the number 2 running back. It really wasn't far behind Javonte Williams. He had less than 100 yards away from Javonte Williams. I mean, he had 4 rushing touchdowns last year. Javonte Williams had 4 as well. That was both tied for the most. I mean, their running back room was dreadful, and they've quietly rebuilt it. The veteran, the rookie, I like that as well. And the Broncos offense as a whole, you look at this team, it's crazy where we were a year ago with them. Now they should make the playoffs again. Bo Nix, we'll see what he does in year number 2. But Bo Nix with a run game, that's something that he didn't have last year. It's another tool for that offense for Sean Payton for them to utilize. So definitely agree with that one. I have a couple more here. I'll go with kind of 2. I'll just tie in here at once. Emeka Egbuka in Tampa, another guy that we both really like coming out of Ohio State. Kind of interesting because you look at like his role in Tampa, and you see, he's behind Chris Godwin and behind, Mike Evans. But I still think wide receiver number 3 there, he's going to be able to play an important role for them. And I just look at that team, Mayfield, you got Rachaad White, Bucky Irving in the backfield, but more importantly, the pass catchers, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Emeka Egbuka. That is a very good 3, kind of that trio. Like, that's very intriguing to me. And I really like the potential of Emeka Egbuka. And they also have some of the veterans. They got Sterling Shepard, who is one of your veterans behind there. But Egbuka, to me, can be a very productive player this year. Adds another weapon to that offense. Adds another piece for Baker Mayfield. For a team that's already been pretty dangerous, I like that for them. And then I'll also throw Harold Fannin Jr. out there as well. Cleveland, I mean, it's Jerry Jeudy, and that's about it. And then you have David Njoku, but Harold Fannin Jr. from a receiving perspective, elite in college. He's going to play a big role. I know he's tied at number 2. He's going to play a big role because Deontay Johnson, Cedric Tillman, I mean, none of those guys really move the needle for you. Harold Fannin Jr., David Njoku, that's a very intriguing 1-2 punch at tight end. You have Jeudy, that quarterback room, I don't even know. So he's another one that I'll throw out there. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah, I like Egbuka. I mean, so you can argue we're going to revisit this. They will finish as one of the better trios in football with this season. And you throw in, Kate Otten's another one that you add to that mix of just pass catchers who had seemed like came out of nowhere, for example, who had a pretty big year. So again, like I mentioned earlier, where either hey your production goes up or you're a non-factor. I think for Ibuka, who some might forget was supposed to be wide receiver one in the draft for the last, before this college season, last college season started, year before, many thought he could have been the first receiver off the board, and obviously that didn't happen. But this isn't just some random guy they drafted in the late round that kind of has to come and improve himself. Like he was the guy at Ohio State before Jeremiah Smith got there. So I really do like that one. And Harold Fanning Jr., yeah. That don't let that 4.7 40 fool you. That guy can play football. It does not matter what he might run in some shorts. What was it, 1,700 yards his last season at Bowling Green? He can play football. And I think him and Njoku are going to be the perfect complement to each other, with Njoku being more of your, faster type of receiving tight end. But for Harold Fanning, 1,700 yards, that screams nothing but receiving tight end. And we had mentioned this before when we were talking about some draft stuff. If Harold Fanning, I'm not going to say Alabama, I'm not going to say Michigan, I'm not going to say like a humongous school like that. If Harold Fanning played at USF and put up those type of numbers, he probably would have been the first tight end taken off the board, if we're being so honest. So it's going to be fun to watch him. Well, I'm on board with both of those. I like those two.
Yeah, and just to also touch upon Ibuka, like you mentioned, kind of was in the shadow of Jeremiah Smith, and it was also even in the shadow a little bit of, oh my God, Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah,
slipped my brain for a second. He's always kind of been like the forgotten guy, and like you mentioned, he would have been a first-round pick coming out last year, but then dealt with the injury, came back for another year, put together a very productive season. Like he's been ready. So, and I know he's a first-round pick, and maybe you don't say, oh, he's not underrated because he's a first-round pick, but he's not really talked about much, and a lot of people look at that Tampa Bay offense, and you don't really think of Emeka Ibuka right away. So, yeah, that three-headed monster at receiver is, and Kate Otten, very dangerous. Baker Mayfield MVP season? Who knows?
Could argue that you could have argued that last year.
You could have.
So, yeah.
And now might argue it again. So, anyway, that'll wrap it up. Any closing thoughts?
Thank you guys for watching. Camp is back. Camp is back. Camp is back. So we will get some camp stuff. Hopefully some good news, no injury news for any of the 32 teams. So camp news come up here. We will probably transition to some fantasy football stuff. So football is back. What a time.
You definitely want my fantasy football advice.
Same here.
But yeah, we will be getting into some fantasy football stuff. I know drafts are starting to ramp up. Probably about a month from now, I'll be doing my draft. I always like to do it, late August, once preseason's wrapped up, make sure to avoid all the injuries. But August is the month of fantasy draft. So, and even now, I'm sure some people now with training camp be kicking off. So we'll get into that. Any other training camp notes? We'll dive into that. I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Which player or which quarterback training camp stats are we going to track the most here?
Justin Herbert.
Herbert, okay. I think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. I think we're going to get a lot of news in Minnesota. I think it's going to be one day it's going to be McCarthy look great. We're going to get an episode where it's going to be like McCarthy is flashing at training camp, and then there's going to be another episode where it's going to be like J.J. McCarthy threw 4 interceptions and the Vikings didn't get a first down in team drills.
Yeah, I do agree with that one, just because the hype around what should be this year.
Yeah.
I say
Herbert's
Herbert because that's hypothetical what if, man. And it's been like that since he's gotten to the league. So, yeah, it's can't wait.
Yeah, we're back. We're football's back when we're diving into training camp and diving into Justin Herbert's practice stats.
Yeah.
So
it's almost like, just to wrap it up, it's almost like when you're an NBA fan and you see Ben Simmons off-season workout, the season's right around the corner.
Yeah.
That's what it is with Justin Herbert in training camp. So
just from the pass up a wide open layup.
So, yeah, we're here. We're back.
Yes. We are back next week. talking about it all. And yeah, stay tuned. Appreciate the support as always, and we'll talk to you soon.